Welcome to How to Be a Humane Leader Without Losing Your Job. Explore the wealth of experience and guidance in humane leadership for today's fast-paced business world. Get ready to lead with heart, supercharge your career, and engage with us on all major streaming platforms, including YouTube. I'm Chris King, a Fortune 100 IT leader, and I'm joined with a seasoned startup engineering leader, Roberto Torres. Today, we will discuss how to reduce your chances of being laid off and the signs to watch for. Are you ready for this discussion, Roberto?
Yes, I am, sir.
All right. Well, I hope nobody gets laid off, of course, but in the news, it seems that the Wall Street Journal's laying people off. I was just looking through here. PayPal's laying people off. Lockheed Martin's laying people off. PayPal, just tons of companies lately making announcements that they're getting laid off. And sometimes you can't avoid it because they're shutting down a whole site and it's where you're at. But there are certainly some things you, the employee, you, the humane leader, can do to help people be as valuable as possible to reduce their chances, I guess, is the key thing. Is what can you do to reduce your chances of being laid off? What can the humane leader do? And what can you, the employee, do? So do you want to start with some thoughts or you want me to start?
I think that besides big companies, also smaller companies, SMBs, as well as startups, is facing this right now. And I think that even though your company might not be in this kind of danger, it's always nice to have in your mind that you could be fired if the company is not reaching the objectives it is aiming for. So it is something that you must not give for granted and be prepared, but do also more that you should do, or maybe to try as a humane leader to gather your team and always reach your objectives. Because I will give you this analogy. It is like I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan of the NFL, and I want Mike Tomlin to be fired. But since this guy made the playoffs, he's not going to be fired. So with this analogy, if you reach and or surpass your objectives, it's going to be really difficult for you to get fired.
Absolutely true. And actually the coaching analogy is very good. I think that sometimes we think of our work family as a work family, and really it's much better to use the team analogy. The humane leaders being that coach, coaching them to success. But unfortunately, sometimes you may have a good player or a good assistant coach that's okay, but just not fitting in. And sometimes they're the target of the layoff. And so if you think of it like a sports team where you have to stay within a budget, sometimes there's a salary cap, the company, the team is not doing so well, so some difficult decisions are going to be made on who to keep and who is going to have to move on to other teams, so to speak, or get laid off. And I think as the humane leader, if we coach people on where we see that they're maybe lacking in performance, helping them promote the things that they're really doing well, giving them opportunities perhaps to present the success of their project. Occasionally, if a project is big enough, maybe it needs to get presented to the senior leadership that here's the success of the project. And instead of the humane leader presenting it, you let one of your senior team members who is integral to the success of the project, have them present part or all of the project summary so that the senior leadership knows who the most valuable players are. I think that when you're in any size company, there is an aspect of self-promotion that has to take place. So even as the humane leader being the coach and we're trying to help everybody succeed, the whole team, the reality is every coach is ranking their team 1 to 100, and whoever's number one, we want to help make sure that the senior leadership of the company recognizes who those top players are so that in the event there is a downturn, that they aren't on the list. I mean, the way a layoff works, basically, for those of you who don't know, literally lists of names get created and they get reviewed, and the legal team and HR looks at it and makes sure that you're not targeting people for the wrong reasons, illegal reasons. And so and certainly in large companies, it can take several months to finalize the list. So you want to be doing what you can to promote your employees, to ensure that they're getting credit for what's going on. And you, the employee, you may not like public speaking. I don't want to public speak. I don't want to do that. Well, there's consequences to some of those decisions. Sometimes you got to do stuff that you don't want to do or don't like to do, and you need to get better at doing to make yourself the better player for the team, and that makes you more valuable.
Yeah, indeed. And to accomplish that, you must use a tool that we have spoken in too many episodes, and we will still do it. It is communication. If you clearly communicate with your team, and for instance, that's why it's so important the one-on-ones, because with that you could share and express yourself and convey the message to your team member in which, okay, you're doing great or you're not doing so great. You have to, and to provide something, some actionals. So in the end, communication is really essential to provide this, because you will receive communication from your leader, and you must seek also that communication, because maybe that leader isn't, or that boss isn't as communicative as you. So you have to, and it is the same. You go from above and you go to below. So it has to be a constant communication to have this.
Yeah, and in terms of signs, if there's layoffs approaching, certainly watching the headlines of the world are important. If you hear a lot of companies are doing layoffs, that increases the odds that your company is going to be laying off, especially if you're a big, huge company like where I worked at. If the economy starts to slow down and other companies are announcing layoffs, your company is probably going to do layoffs. But listen closely to what your boss says. Is he or she giving you feedback that you need to work harder on something? Or um, hey, worst case scenario, they start asking you, hey, have you documented all that? Is that stored in the team shared drive? And they start inquiring to make sure all your documentation is up to date and all the information of how the database is structured is documented, et cetera. Those also can be signs that they're probably putting you on the list. If normally your boss is never following up on those things, and the documentation is only checked at the very end of the project, and you're halfway through the project, and all of a sudden they're making sure your data dictionary and the and all this documentation is completed, you may be on the list already.
Yeah, yeah. And also one thing is, besides we have spoken everything, is to know where are we in the metrics. Okay, usually some companies have KPIs, others have OKRs. Have we reached those numbers? Where are we expecting to? If those numbers are from quarters, from age, or from the year, where are we right now? What is the percentage? Let's say, for instance, right now is February the 1st. Okay, so we are almost half of this quarter. If we have some metrics that we had to reach in this quarter, where are we? Are we 10%? 50%, 100? Where are we? If we are not close to where we should be, or where we supposed to be, we have to, you know, press the pedal, take some actions to reach those numbers. Because usually, and this could go to all humans in the world, when we have reached those achievements, when we have goals in a quarter, let's say in this quarter, January, February, and March. we don't do much on January and maybe not do much on February, but we do a lot in March. We should do that. We should be always be productive. So our leaders will say, no, this team doesn't do all the work in March. This team has all this performance, hit this high performance the whole time. So that should be also something to be really aware of. Don't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something, for folks who are aspiring to be humane leaders and they're currently individual contributors, is learning about those metrics and really understanding which ones does your business care about the most. You may have worked at another company where a certain metric was the most important to them, but at your new company, maybe it's something different. So learn what those are and make sure that your work contributes to those important metrics the most. Because again, this gets back to that kind of self-promotion aspect that, hey, you get an opportunity to present your project to the leadership when it's successful. Well, in between that, from the beginning of the project to the end, there's a lot in the middle. And maybe you can get some opportunities if your boss's humane leader, is normally presenting them. Inquire to your humane leader, hey, can I present some of the metrics? Because I was really involved in the improvement of the database performance. So can I get an opportunity to present a portion of that? Again, getting visibility for yourself, whether you are the leader or the individual contributor, is most critical during times when the business is struggling. If everything's going great and the company's making money hand over fist and there's lots of open job postings and they're hiring like crazy, you don't have to be very paranoid about it. But if the company starts to take down job postings and saying, well, we got to tighten our belts, and now they're starting to have closed door meetings and your boss is unavailable when normally he's in the office with his door open, and now it's closed a lot. These are some signs that things are maybe not going as well, and you need to re-engage with your humane to contribute as much as possible, make your contributions very visible, to improve your odds of keeping your name off the list.
Yeah, actually, recognizing the signs is something that politics in the company might be due to apply. You know, you use politics, and when politics fail, you use diplomacy. But in this case, politics will help you gain not only the knowledge but recognizing those signs to see, hey, I think that I was going okay, but what I have seen doing this politics in the company with another peers is something that is going to affect me. So I'm not putting out as politics as a bad tool, but politics meaning that you go with your peers and you talk, you communicate with them, and you begin gaining knowledge that maybe in other times, maybe in meetings nor emails, you won't find about. So it could be something good for you as a humane leader to use it wisely, not use it as a bad tool or something to attack someone, but use it wisely, and as a humane leader should do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think politics, a lot of people think of it in a very negative sense lots of times because our elected politicians in general are bad people and awful, right? So
Yeah.
when people talk about office politics, they often think about how bad it is, but the reality is that is part of the social network of the office. I mean, maybe you could call it social networking instead of politicking, but it is those connections that make you valuable as a humane leader or make you valuable as an individual contributor, because those social connections help you know who to go to for the right things. You get to know who's a dependable person who will get the job done. And those are the people that don't get laid off because they're a critical part of the company, keeping things running smoothly. And the more ingrained you are in that network, the more valuable you're seen. You're seen as a contributor who's really making the company function well. I mean, it's unfortunate when layoffs happen. The key thing, I think, for both the humane leader and the individual is to be open and honest about what's going on around you. If the humane leader, he has an employee who comes to him and the employee says, look, I'm seeing your door closed. I know things are not going. I saw in the news PayPal's laying off 10,000 people and we're in the payment processing area. The humane leader needs to be very honest with those employees and say, yeah, I saw those headlines too. Um, Here's what we can do to make sure we reduce the odds that we get laid off. The humane leader has to keep secrets. There are times when you just have to keep secrets. And maybe the humane leader's not in the loop even. Maybe they're not far enough up the hierarchy of the company to even know that there are going to be layoffs. But the humane leader can coach the employee to be as valuable as possible, acknowledging what's happening externally, right? As being truthful as a humane leader and being truthful about what makes that employee most valuable. Be honest with them. It's kind of like a performance review, right? Be honest with that employee. If they haven't been pulling their weight, be honest and say, look, this has nothing to do with your question about layoff, but we talked during your performance review, and frequently, you get a list of tasks for the month and you only get 6 out of 10 of them done. That's almost every month. Those are not good metrics to keep you off a layoff list if there was one. I don't know if there is one or not. But I can tell you, and we've discussed in the performance reviews, your performance reviews, that you're not doing everything we're expecting of you. So that's not good, Steve. You need to do better. So listen for those signs, both as the humane employee trying to be honest and voice concerns to the humane leader, but the humane leader has an obligation too to be frank about performance. If this
Yeah.
employee's not really cutting it, even though maybe there's no layoffs whatsoever, well, don't lie to them and say, don't worry, Steve, you're doing awesome. When you talk to them in the performance review a month ago and told them, well, you only did 6 out of 10, that's flunking in school.
Yeah.
So be a humane leader and be honest, give good constructive feedback, coach them how to improve and get those other 4 things done. That's the best way to avoid being laid off.
Yes, and I will point out two things that you mentioned. First, yes, you have to be open and honest, but the thing is, do not lie. I know it is really difficult, especially for people which we live in Latam. O sea, excuse me, I say, o sea, but from Mexico to Chile, it's really difficult for us to say no when people are reaching to us. It's kind of a cultural thing about among Latinos. But the thing is, you have to be frank and honest. Do not lie. You say, okay, dude, you're not going well. Okay, it's like you mentioned in your performance review. I told you to do this. You didn't do it. What can I tell you? But don't uh, do not be afraid to say no. Do it. Am I doing good? No, you're not. I'm really worried about you. This is a team. Let's say, for instance, this is a team in which, in this network, this network, you do not have to be a lone ranger. You have to work with a team. That is something that usually there are certain kind of people who does it, who like to be lone rangers and stick with that. No, try to be communicating with that. That is something that you have to say. But in the end, telling the truth is the most important thing, because with that, first of all, you have to tell you the truth. If you mentioned secrets, but I think it's confidentiality. In the end, if you know that your team is going to be cut in half, you have to keep that secret or that confidentiality.
Yes,
And you
correct.
cannot tell people. It's not that you're hiding something. It's that You have an order in which the team is going to be cut in half. And when people approach you, you got to have also apply politics, you know?
Yep.
And with that, you could make it. People are going to get bad. The ones that are going to be fired are the ones that wouldn't or that weren't. But in the end, you kept being a humane leader. No?
Exactly right. Because you should never ever lie about it. I have experienced leadership where I knew through other channels, through that social network, that layoffs were coming. I've actually had leaders to my face say, no, there's no layoffs coming. Well, in my company, there were layoffs every quarter. So, I mean, anytime a leader told you there were no layoffs coming, hadn't worked there very long, because we were constantly doing layoffs of different sections, different parts of the business. It was almost like a normal day at work to be doing reductions in force in different areas of the company. It was a constant thing. So you really, as a leader, when many employees would ask about that, my kind of more favorite way to approach it was, look, you've worked here X amount of time. So, Roberto, you've worked here 5 years. You've seen that we've had layoffs in the past. I would expect we will have some layoffs at different times during the year. As a leader, I can't, if I knew of layoffs, I can't disclose them to you in my role as a leader. I just can't do it. And I've had those kinds of exact conversations with employees so many times, and sometimes even in team meetings, being, look, guys, I'm the leader. This company has layoffs. You've seen it happen. We had one 6 months ago. They happen. And when they do, I can't tell you that they're being planned because of my confidentiality requirements with the company as a leader. But what I can tell you is I am going to be humane about it. I'm going to help you guys with your performance to be as strong as possible, which reduces your odds of being on the list. Those are the kinds of frank conversations that you can have both one-to-one and even with the team. But you just need to be very careful how you phrase things, because you hit it the nail on the head. You should never lie. A humane leader, by definition, never lies. If you know there's a layoff coming and you say, oh, no, there's no layoff coming, don't worry about it, you are a liar. And
Yes.
that is the worst kind of leader. I would never want to work for that kind of leader ever again.
Yeah. A lie will backfire to you, not in a positive way, always badly. So, when if lie or not, so go with the latter.
Absolutely. And the humane leader prepares for when they have to keep things confidential. You need to have your plan of what are you going to say to employees when they ask, because those who truly trust you will ask. If there's
Mhm.
layoffs coming and nobody on your team asks you,
Oof.
you may not be as humane as you think you are,
Oh, yeah.
because they don't trust you. They're unwilling to voice concerns to you. And I always found it funny. There were some leaders at my company who got upset and angry. Why are people asking about layoffs? And I'm like, you are so out of tune. You don't realize these employees are concerned about paying their mortgages and having health insurance for their families, and you're upset that people are asking about layoffs? You are not a humane leader. Those are things you can watch for as you go, further your career, and pick leaders you want to emulate and be like. And sometimes the most challenging situations, like layoffs, is when the real leaders emerge, and watch for that. As bad as layoffs are, it is one of the best times to really observe who are the best employees, who are the best leaders, and it will come out as the layoffs take place and things happen. And you will be able to determine which are the leaders you want to work for. And you may survive the layoff, but realize how the company did it, how the leadership did it. You may decide that even though you did not get laid off, you don't want to be there anymore. And perhaps it's time to put your get your resume up to date, your CV, and start looking for other places. Because I found it is very telling how people manage through a layoff, who are the good leaders and who are not.
Yeah, let me tell you something. When maybe you're looking for a job and you go to, I think this site, it is glassdoor.com, in which you could see the reviews of the people who work there, the management, the CEO, and everything. From 5 stars, you could see that maybe that company has maybe three or two. Heck, I'm going to apply to that company. But if it's maybe 4 or 5, or reaching close to 5 stars, oh my God, I want to. And you cannot say my boss was Steve Martin. No, you cannot say about that, but you could see about the culture of the company. So with that in mind, also will help you. No.
Yeah, Glassdoor is a good one. Thelayoff.com, the word thelayoff.com is another good one. Yeah, you can really see some of the companies that have just comments from their employees are just really positive, and other companies that they really skew the other way. Now, granted, you always got to take those kinds of opinions with a grain of salt, because sometimes it's the angry people that are commenting. Um, but when it's overwhelming and 90% bad, like you're saying, 1 star company, you probably don't want to work at a 1 star company.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Great.
Absolutely.
Um, with this, I think we should do the wrap up.
Absolutely. So thanks for tuning in to another episode of How to Be a Humane Leader Without Losing Your Job. Apply today's insights to become a better leader. And are you a humane leader with a unique story? Join us in the conversation and inspire others. Reach out to us. We'd like you to be our guest. We'll see you later, Roberto.
Bye bye, Chris.